The Hawaii Sports Radio Network on 95.1 FM and AM 760 presents Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ule Agbayani.
Good morning, beautiful people. It's Wake Up in the Den. I'm Ku'ule Agbayani alongside Paul Brecht on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM, AM 760, and hawaiisportsradio.com. Mahalo for tuning in on the radio or online or on our live YouTube stream that we stream this and every Monday as we go live with you guys from 8 to 10 every single weekday. But you can text in to get in on the conversation at 808-888-KGU1. That's 808-888-5481, or you can just chime in on the live YouTube chat to just talk story with us a little bit. Got a lot of basketball conversation on deck, obviously, as we are right in the thick of things when it comes to NCAA March Madness with the first couple of rounds of the men's tournament it has been completed. We are into the Sweet 16, and the women finish up their second round today. So we'll get into a lot of that stuff. And a little bit, you heard Chaz on Ty talk about the UH Sports Circle of Honor. We'll get into some UH baseball and softball coming up with a couple of series wins for each of them against UC Davis. Also, water polo having a win. So it was pretty much a winning weekend for University of Hawaii Athletics. So good weekend to recap for you guys. But before we get into that, Paul, how's it going, my friend?
It's going well. I'm excited to be back after what was both a not so busy weekend, but also very busy weekend, kind of as you
totally
mentioned.
Get it.
Like, you know, we didn't have men's volleyball this week. They're finally back in action once again as well. And, you know, baseball didn't start playing until Saturday, so they still are playing today. Softball being in action, but theirs was like they had a double header, so that one was one of the days felt incredibly packed. It's been fun. It's been a good weekend. Ready to be back. Ready to talk about a ton of stuff. Men's basketball and women's basketball transfer portals, I believe, open today. So surely that will lead to conversation on social media, which means I will probably be on my phone throughout the day, throughout maybe even this show. We'll see. Yeah, lots to talk about. Excited to talk about it with you, my friend, and excited that we have some beautiful people joining us. Aloha Caesar as well, always in our chat,
Caesar.
getting in on the conversation early on.
All right, before we get into the NCAA tournament stuff and with the transfer portal being open, it's similar vibes to the transfer portal being open in college football, right? Like when the bowl games are still going on and there was all that kind of stuff. So
still hate that.
How do we feel about the fact that the transfer portal opens in the middle of when the season is still technically going on? I mean, I know it's the postseason, but we're still in season. There are still a ton of teams playing, a lot of student athletes that are still competing, and yet it's all trying to navigate like what's going on with the transfer portal being open now. Because again, for college basketball, yes, I know there's a ton of teams that have not finished playing, but maybe you have like your teams that are in the Sweet 16, especially for men's basketball, and they're the guys that don't get much playing time. But then do you start to like, how do you navigate all of this stuff going on? And then if you're someone like maybe Will Wade, then you're like your McNeese players that you want to take over with you, or all of those players enter the transfer portal. And I don't know, it's kind of crazy. I mean, hopefully teams like the University of Hawaii, whose season is officially all PAL, can take advantage of some significant players that are intending on hopping into the transfer portal. But it's just such a weird timing, and I don't know if if the solution is to move it back. But I don't know. How do you feel about that whole thing, where not just basketball, but even football, when there are still meaningful games being played and the transfer portals are open?
I can't say that I love it. There's like, I get it. I think that's part of it, where we've had conversations before about the different windows, right? And I've kind of had thoughts about it where it's like, I don't love that you can go through spring practice. This is more specifically for football, but that you can go through spring practices and then transfer again or whatever, things like that. It's, I don't know, it feels weird, but at the end of the day, you do understand that this is the new college athletics, right? This is the world of the transfer portal, the NIL, where it's essentially free agency. And for the teams that don't make tournaments, they start, right? They have to start going through the players who also didn't make the tournaments, because that is something as well where it is a little more rare to see players in the NCAA tournament announce that they are entering the transfer portal like pre-transfer or pre-tournament, but immediately afterwards you do see a lot of guys like, I mean, it feels like 5 minutes after the game ends, star player from such and such university has entered the transfer portal. And it's literally every single school, and it's basically every single player. So I can't give much rub to any player.
Everyone is dealing with the same issues. I guess you can say, hey, I mean, I guess somewhat of a shout out, because this was just a funny thing on our group chat, to former HBU Sharks men's basketball player Melo Sanchez.
Yeah, he's leading those
He technically
Razorbacks.
finds himself into the Sweet 16, which leads us into that right now. So looking at with the men's side, again, the women still need to finish up today, but the men's Sweet 16 officially all PAL. So just running through it real quick in the upper left quadrant, I guess you can say, you got Auburn and Michigan, and then Ole Miss versus Michigan State. On the opposite side, you'll have Duke versus Arizona, and then BYU versus Alabama. And then you go to the bottom half of the bracket, you'll get Florida, who a lot of people have them as the favorite or to win their bracket, but barely escaping UConn 77-75 in that second round game. So Florida versus Maryland, and that's another heartbreaker one, right? You kind of, if we're not rooting for UCSD, I'm kind of like, all right, I want to see the Mountain West teams go pretty far, even though Colorado State is one of the schools that will leave the Mountain West. But nonetheless, for now, I wanted to see them go far. But Maryland squeaking past Colorado State 72-71. So the matchup in the Sweet 16 will be Florida and Maryland. And then you got Texas Tech versus Arkansas, and that's where we kind of made the joke of former Sharks men's basketball player Melo Sanchez. He's sitting comfortably on the bench, and by comfortably, I mean, all those Arkansas guys they're doing just fine, whatever portion of the team that they are playing.
Coach Cal's NIL category is not quite that of the mid-major.
Yeah, but okay. Division II for sure.
I was going to say, I'm like, not even mid-major.
And then on the other side, you have Houston versus Purdue. I'm sorry, Purdue. I was not familiar with your three-point shooting game. I mean, they were just like snipering over McNeese in that game, 76-62. If they weren't so on it from long distance, maybe could have had a different game, but nonetheless, the Boilermakers move on to play Houston in the Sweet 16. And then last but not least, you have Kentucky. Again, another one is an interesting story. It's weird because it feels weird to say it's like a Cinderella or redemption story in Kentucky, because we are, and then John Calipari's on the other side, but it's Kentucky and Tennessee. But yeah, it's interesting, right? Because Kentucky, brand new head coach. The coach came over and basically hit the transfer portal and found all of these guys, put them together, got them to play together, and here we are. I mean, they're looking pretty good. Beat Illinois 84-75 to advance to the Sweet 16. And then on the opposite side, you have John Calipari, who is kind of like this. It's weird, like, what twilight zone are we living in right now, where you have John Calipari, and I heard like other people, and it seemed kind of interesting to. He's beating Bill Self in the first round, and then Rick Pitino most recently, 75-66 over St. John's. I wish it went the other way, though, but I was cheering for St. John's and Rick Pitino. But nonetheless, but then he's donning the, I don't know, what is it, crimson, I guess? What is Arkansas? Yeah? Maroon?
Maroon, I think. I don't know. They're the Razorbacks to me. I don't think about their color.
So you have John Calipari in here.
They're the 33rd red team in the SEC.
And Bill Self. Didn't advance past the first round for a few years. That's why he got axed at Kentucky. Mm-hmm. So you have him advancing to the Sweet 16 with Arkansas. And then, like I said, on the opposite side, you have brand new head coach at Kentucky and they're making it to the Sweet 16, and it's just all jumbled up. And like I said, when I kind of had a chance to sit back and kind of take a look at how this Sweet 16 is shaping up in the men's tournament, it's just, yeah, what a world we're living in. And then Michigan beating Texas A&M, which a Michigan team that almost lost to UC San Diego. So you're almost like, can we go into like the opposite, what is the opposite timeline of like the universe where UC San Diego could have and should have or would have beat Michigan?
There's a reason that I picked UCSD to make the Sweet 16, guys. Okay. I believed in them to be a Cinderella. And they almost were. They really, really almost were. They had one of their worst shooting games of the season. Of course they did. No, this is an awesome Sweet 16, despite it being mostly chalky. I know that has been a complaint for a lot of fans throughout this March Madness on the men's side, especially that we've not had the same amount of upsets as we normally get. And even the Arkansas team that is a 10 seed making it into the Sweet 16 doesn't exactly feel like
You're Cinderella.
You're Cinderella because you have Coach Cal, because you do have DJ Wagner, because you do have a lot of really great players on that team. And that's not to say that Cinderellas before haven't had great players. Obviously they have. But this is a little bit different because the pedigree of some of these guys a little bit higher, especially, it starts with your head coach. That is a little dynamic that I've been watching throughout the entire tournament is not just those two teams, but the fan bases of Arkansas and Kentucky, because Kentucky fans, oh my God, they were melting down after Arkansas won. They're like, tomorrow is the biggest game of Mark Pope's career. He needs to he's the one replacing Calipari and whatever. And all of them wanted Cal gone. Like the fans wanted Cal gone. So if he were to make the Sweet 16 in a year that was brutal for Arkansas, they went through more ups and downs than, I don't know, pick your hilliest place in the world, right? And here they are in the Sweet 16 still dancing, and it's kind of a fun story. They've been kind of fun throughout this year. Kentucky isn't necessarily that same Kentucky from maybe this past decade when Cal was there, where you felt they were almost Duke-esque in terms of the recruits that they'd get, and it's just
100%.
loaded. And that's not to say that Kentucky doesn't still have a ton of talent on this roster and didn't do a great job in the transfer portal, but kind of as you alluded to, was rebuilt almost fully through the transfer portal, and they're coming together. They've been great through a really good SEC this entire year, but coming together now and have a really intriguing matchup against Tennessee, who is the number 2 seed, but dropped both meetings against the Wildcats this season in the regular season. So, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. We've seen that before, unfortunately. Can Kentucky do it? Or maybe does Arkansas keep dancing into the Elite 8 and we see some Wildcat tears? I don't know. I'm excited about that little dynamic.
I need to find this feed that you speak of, because I think I would enjoy just seeing the breakdown of Kentucky fans watching as if Arkansas were to advance further than them, and that they're more passionate about their team going further than John Calipari's new team instead of anything else that could possibly happen. To pay attention to other teams and matchups more than your actual team, I can only imagine the meltdown of all of these fans, because they're passionate, right? They're a passionate men's basketball fan base. It's crazy, and I can't imagine the melt. I'm gonna go find one on social media just to is there a hashtag that I can put up in my to save on my feed so that I can see the meltdown depending on how the Sweet 16 games are going. That would actually be kind of joyous, especially because again we're the mid-major team that is on the outside looking in and hopefully getting to work in the recruiting off season now. But
I love March Madness. I hope to be a part of it someday.
Exactly. So because we are not a part of it again this year, and there are no teams that I have any skin in the game per se. I'm going to pay attention to certain teams, we were mentioning the Kentucky and Arkansas little dynamic going on right now. Other than that, the Mountain West teams get knocked out. The Big West team obviously got knocked out. So and Kansas, no surprise, got knocked out early. So for me personally, as a college men's basketball fan, I'm just like, oh, I just want to see some really close and good games. But now if I can have a little side entertainment watching the Kentucky fan base meltdown, then why not? Like that sounds like a fun time to me.
It is so funny to watch them. But at the end of the day, they have a really good team to root for.
Yeah.
And that Tennessee-Kentucky game is going to be a brawl. So excited to watch it. It's been a fun tournament. I know that it's been less Cinderella, less upset, more chalky and whatnot, but we're still getting a lot of really good hoops. Kind of like you said, the Colorado State-Maryland game yesterday was incredible. That St. John's versus Arkansas game I thought was going to be the game of the first weekend, and somehow it ended up not being maybe even top 3. It was a very, very good set of basketball games, and I appreciate that.
All right. Got to take a break, but we will be right back to continue our basketball conversation on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Stuck in traffic? Wake Up in the Den with Kulale Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back. It's Wake Up in the Den. Kulale Agbayani and Paul Brecht on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network and streaming live on our YouTube channel. Hello, everybody, for tuning in. And be sure you like and subscribe. And like Paul said, hello, Caesar, as he always chimes in. First one to chat. Pretty soon when we start getting...
Somebody's got to beat him.
Yeah, we got to get Bronson and Roland on our live stream, and that's going to be a competition. Like, who's going to beat Caesar for the first comment
I
in
don't
the
think anybody will.
chats?
I legitimately don't think so. He is as good as it gets.
He's there.
I've never seen somebody with that level of dedication, and I can't express my appreciation enough for it.
Oh, we love it. But yes, like we said, you guys can chime in on the live chat, or you can text us at 808-888-KG1. That's 808-888-5481. We're talking all about the NCAA March Madness, some of the games that were going on. Again, the men's Sweet 16 is all set. Now looking at the women's side, because we have a bunch of women's teams in action today. So if we pull up the women's bracket for our people watching on YouTube, some of the games that went down, I got a little bit of a scare over the weekend. I remember texting Paul them. I'm like, oh my gosh, Juju, because it looked like she almost went down in one of the games. She did. She hobbled off what looked like an ankle injury, but she's all right.
Said she's fine.
She said she's fine. Everything's fine. But USC in action later today or this afternoon, taking on Mississippi State. as one of the 1 seeds, and they will move on to play Kansas State. Kansas State beat Kentucky 80-79, just ever so close. Other games going on right now to determine a Sweet 16 matchup. You got Iowa versus Oklahoma and South Dakota State versus UConn. And whew, Paul texted me and was like, remember when we talked about how some of these spreads, like the 40-point spreads for some of these women's teams, remember how we talked about it might not be enough? Yeah. That UConn game over Arkansas State, 103-34. So that was a great, I'm like, what just happened? And that's not the only one. If you go to another portion of this bracket, South Carolina, 108 over 108-48 over Tennessee Tech, with South Carolina also moved on and beating Indiana 64-53. So a little closer of a game, and South Carolina punches their way into the Sweet 16. They will await the winner of Alabama and Maryland. And then on the other side, you had Duke beat Oregon to go into the Sweet 16, and will await the winner of West Virginia versus North Carolina. On the other side, you got the number 1 overall seed UCLA versus Ole Miss in the Sweet 16 matchup. And then on the other side, you got NC State, who beat Michigan State and will await the winner of Florida State and LSU. And then last but not least, the final portion of the bracket, a game that's going on right now, Texas versus Illinois. Texas up 16-12 over the 8 seed in Illinois, and they will move on to face the number 5 seed in Tennessee in the Sweet 16. Whoever wins. And then Notre Dame versus TCU. I do have Notre Dame going far. They had a really nice win over Michigan, 76-55, and TCU over Louisville, 85-70. So a nice breezy wins for a couple of those teams that will meet in the Sweet 16. But yeah, other than the scare with Juju Watkins, and hopefully she's all good to go today, because USC, I could pretty much toss my ticket, no shade to a lot of the talent that they have there at USC, but if we're talking to have a chance to beat a team like South Carolina or even UCLA, if that's who they meet in the Final Four, you need Juju Watkins.
To even come out of your region, you're going to need that, because you have UConn awaiting you in the bottom of that.
Exactly.
So it's like that was a really big scare for a lot of Trojans fans and a lot of people who have the Trojans winning their bracket, who may or may not be in this room. I don't know. No, I talked about the men's side being chalky. I mean, the women's side is almost not always chalky, but very often you see, especially once you get into the Sweet 16, a lot of the top teams, they're the top teams for a reason. And you're seeing it with the scores, South Carolina, UConn specifically, where we kind of mentioned it. It was half tongue-in-cheek, half like, hey, just by the way, this is definitely not big enough of a line, because these teams are incredible. Really nice effort by Indiana, who I guess in a way upset Utah in the first round, 9-8, I guess. Biggest upset of the tournament, I think, would have to be that South Dakota State game. Am I missing something, Koo? South Dakota State taking down Oklahoma State, 10-7 seed. They'll take on UConn later today. That's a game I'm really interested in. South Dakota State's been one of the best mid-major teams in all of women's college basketball, not just this season, but like over the past couple. Mm-hmm. Very similar to what the Rainbow Wahine have been, plus some a little bit. Are they able to give UConn a little bit of a run for their money that we saw a team like Indiana do to the second overall number 1 seed in South Carolina? That one should be a lot of fun. Iowa, nice job by them continuing on. Georgia Amore, by the way, she is lovely. The point guard for Kentucky, she ended up missing what would have been a game-winning floater yesterday against Kansas State, and I know that would absolutely destroy me on the inside. And she is the most bubbly, positive person, very easy to root for. They asked her post-game, a lot of people you see after missing that type of shot, they're crying and whatnot, and her answer, and I'll paraphrase here very succinctly, she goes, I'm not going to allow one shot to change the memories of 5 years. And I thought that was a very mature answer. It was a very good answer. She is really easy to root for. It was sad to see Kentucky go down because I picked them to win. Also, just because very easy player to root for. Great game back and forth between those two, Kentucky and Kansas State. If you missed that one, go back and watch it. But no, if you didn't get a chance to listen to that, and I'm speaking both to you and to our beautiful people here, I recommend listening to it. Just a very easy player to root for. Good point guard in general. And I mean, I don't know. That type of stuff is what I like to listen to in March as well. The post game.
Oh, the post game, we'll get into that on the men's side. But shout out to our friend Justin Baptiste here. He is saying UConn and South Carolina for the national championship game this year on the women's side. I can definitely see that happening. Obviously, I said I had USC in there. So if anything, USC would be the one to beat UConn. But I think that's very realistic with the way that they have performed so far. And of course, everyone staying healthy. I mean, by the way, like that USC game, even though the score over UNC Greensboro, quote unquote, only 71-25, but for a good chunk of that game, they had like all freshmen on the court. And I tell you what, like it was pretty impressive to see these freshmen compete. There was one specifically, Kaylee Heckel. Looking at it, she scored 8 points coming off the bench, but she was like a grinder. She was very, very entertaining to watch. Yeah, she was entertaining to watch for this USC squad. Again, being just a freshman, but hopefully, like I said, Juju Watkins will be okay. They are in action today with a bunch of other women's games. So we'll see what happened. And then, we got our texter texting in, UConn men's basketball coach, interesting interview. Funny thing, and if you guys were listening, that I think it was Paul that mentioned at one point, like, we want to see the Dan Hurley meltdown.
It's always fun.
There we go. We always had a feeling that it was going to be interesting, considering he melted down after going 0 in the Maui Invitational this year, and yada, yada, yada. Never going to do these 3-day tournaments ever again, because obviously you can blame the tournament and the tournament format for your lack of success thereof, even though it's been a tournament that's been going on forever and ever with teams that have come all across the country, including all the way from the East Coast multiple times and have won. And yet Dan Hurley, I mean, I get it. You had the epitome of success, right? A couple of natties, going back to back, all of that stuff. And then now this is all but a down year. And he's still a coach that is relatively new to all of this stuff, right? You have coaches like your Bill Self and John Calipari and at one time, like Coach K and Rick Pitino's. They've already gone through like the crazy up and downs of everything and have had their moments in the past. And now they kind of know how to navigate and handle all of this stuff a little bit better. But it is kind of fun watching the Dan Hurley meltdown. I'm again, interesting because we don't have any skin in the game in this men's side. It's kind of fun to see the little side things going on.
I always chuckle at it. I don't really have an issue with Dan Hurley. I know a lot of people do. I think he has had an interesting basketball life. If you haven't been able to watch the E60 on him and his family, I recommend doing so, just because it's a good watch. But yeah, I also thought it was an interesting interview in a couple of ways. I never like the way that he handles himself immediately post losses, but I think he's just an emotional person in general, and I can't really give too much flack to that because I'm a very similar way in terms of emotions are high, especially after competing. And when you do compete at that top level with a group as special as this UConn group has been the last few years, I appreciated seeing the emotion from him, both in one-on-one interviews and in his post-game presser. I thought those were good moments of vulnerability from Hurley, and those are more important for us to see from him going forward, I think, because I agree, this year was, if nothing else, a very big learning experience for him after what has been an incredible run for UConn over the past 2.5, 3 seasons. Even this year, the way that they go out is a dogfight against the top overall seed in Florida, who, I mean, not top overall, pardon me, in the top seed in their region. I I think this will be a good offseason for Hurley to look in the mirror a little bit and see how he can still channel the passion that he has, because I will never knock him for that.
Mm-hmm.
But how he can perhaps not sound so much like a whiny baby sometimes at the end of games or after events, because he's not the first coach that has complained about a multi-team event, and he's not the last coach that will complain about a multi-team event. But every time a coach does, I will look at it and think that it is the most ridiculous thing in the world. So I hope he takes the off season to kind of reflect a little bit inwards on how he can improve himself as a leader, because there were times this year that I thought he allowed his emotions to play too big of a role, allowed him, I mean, it happened here in Maui where he got technical fouls late in games and it ended up resulting in losses for them. I think that that is something that he can look inwards for. I also just, I don't know, I hope he doesn't lose the passion either, because it's what makes it fun. We've seen, there are too many coaches nowadays who are just like, I don't know, cookie cutter, like, man, I don't really care, blah, blah, blah. Like,
Yeah, but that's why, like I said, I bring up just the youth that Dan Hurley has compared to like the success he had as such a early time in his coaching career, right? With this UConn team, has only been the head coach since 2018, only 52 years old. So he still has a lot of that built up energy and like all of that stuff, where again, I bring the comparison where you have all of these other veteran coaches that have won national championships as well, maybe not necessarily back to back, but that are currently coaching. And you can tell, like, even Rick Pitino has like kind of come down significantly from the back in the Louisville days, and then you see Calipari and all when they do their post game.
That's just because they're old.
But that's what I mean. It's like Dan Hurley, I think, is like the basketball world wasn't exactly used to a young coach that's only been doing this for a few years, catapulted into like the building this juggernaut of a UConn team. And like, I mean, it was just last year, right? It was like when they were really, everyone's just like, yeah, UConn's going to win. And then it was just the easiest, like no parity, no nothing in the men's tournament. And that's what ended up happening. Like UConn was just the dominant team. So again, I agree with you, Paul, where it's like, I hope he doesn't lose the passion, but I also think like, I don't blame him, because again, it's like, he's still a young coach in the middle of like this type of spotlight and with this type of program that is UConn. Because before that, you know, he's at Rhode Island, Wagner, all these other schools. And now being at UConn, it's like a whole new ball game than anything else, and not winning. But that's the good thing. At least we get a new national champion this year on the men's side. So that's kind of the fun thing, the parity that is in the men's tournament once again. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to switch gears a little bit and just kind of recap some of the diamond sports that happened in the University of Hawaii, and also, well, still going on for the baseball side, but softball completed yesterday. We'll be right back on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ule Agbayani on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to all of you, the beautifulest of all the beautiful people. It's Wake Up in the Den. I'm Ku'ule Agbayani alongside Paul Brecht, and this is the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network on 95.1 FM, AM 760, and hawaiisportsradio.com, and also this and every Monday streaming live on our YouTube channel, so you guys can go watch it either live or on demand, of course, as it goes up right there, or listen on demand wherever you get your podcasts, or at hawaiisportsradio.com. All right, we'll get back to some NCAA March Madness conversation a little later, maybe not until the second hour of the show, as we want to talk about, this is a local show after all, so we want to still make sure we touch on some of the things happening locally. A couple of big series wins for the University of Hawaii baseball and softball teams over the weekend. I mean, technically the men still have a game to play today, but they have won the series over UC Davis. I mean, what a trouncing of a win over the Aggies. 16-0 in the afternoon ball game yesterday. Just real quick, though, before we kind of continue and get you caught up with it, I do need to share something for our fans watching on YouTube, because I was kind of hanging out with head coach Charlie Wade out in the Aloha deck. Subtle flex, yeah. Out in the Aloha deck yesterday, and a bunch of other awesome people. But he had like the best shirt on that I've ever seen, and it says, "I like big mutts," and I cannot lie. So like mutts as in like the dogs. And when he first walked in and I saw him, that like it instantly caught my attention. I'm like, that is the best freaking shirt I have seen in a while. Maybe the top like 5 overall shirts, just because one, I'm a huge dog fan and I love dogs, and it's just everyone is familiar with that Sir Mix-a-Lot song, the most famous song by Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Which one's that? No, sorry.
Sounds similar to the mutts.
I see.
I like
okay,
big
gotcha.
mutts, and I cannot lie. You other can't deny. When a puppy walks in with and a cute I don't know, I was gonna say a cute face in your face, but yeah, that doesn't work.
It was you were freestyling pretty well right there. That was pretty impressive. I will give you that.
So yeah, Charlie walking in with the "I like big mutt" shirts, and it's a Hawaii Humane Society shirt. So I thought it was super, super cool. That
shout out the Humane Society, by the way.
Yeah. Go and adopt your puppies or your cats or any other animals and go support the Hawaii Humane Society.
My little fur best friend, that's where I got mine from.
Hey.
So we've been very happy with ours. So that's, a national champion and some random guy who talks on the radio, both are giving you a reason to go to the Hawaii Humane Society and adopt. So
I too have also adopted from the Humane Society before.
So not just a random guy on the radio, but somebody with the last name Agbayani also. So listen, guys, the evidence is stacking up for you.
Sorry, I got a text from our Kyle Galdera. He's agreeing that was one of the best shirts ever, but he said, "Until I print mine, I before E except Potaki." That's a good one, Kyle. You do have to print that shirt until we print our Built by Radio shirts, because
we still got to get on that.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, I wanted to share that with everybody, especially on our YouTube, that like Charlie had the like best shirts again, especially for all of our animal lovers, like 2 in the studio. It was a great shirt, and a lot of people agreed, and yeah, hanging out. And actually, it was kind of fun. We are hopefully going to do, not in the summer, but in the fall, like I told him he has to be our next, maybe not next, but our in-studio victim sometime this year. He is super busy in the summer, but we were thinking maybe the fall.
I can imagine that.
Yeah, because, more importantly in the fall, because Charlie Wade, everybody, if you did not know this, he is a huge Chicago Bears fan. Let's go. So it'll be perfect if he's here in the fall, maybe like right before the NFL season gets underway or something. Like we were talking for like a good 20 minutes about the Chicago Bears yesterday at the UH baseball game, because he was just like, oh yeah, I'm like living in Chicago for so long and blah, blah, blah. And so
he's from Indiana, right?
Indiana,
so
yeah.
Kind of similar area.
Yeah. So it's all that stuff. So I'm like, all right, I've got another one of the Chicago Bears fans in here. So I think the fall as an in studio victim, and he was already planning it in his head. He's like, all right, got to do this till 8 o'clock. So maybe I can join you for the 9 o'clock hour. I'm like, perfect. We can do that. We can accommodate because, maybe in the summer we might go back down to 1 hour, and then the fall comes back and we got 2 hours once again.
Also, here's the thing. If it's only 1 hour and we don't get to something, that just means we got to have them in again. Yeah. And that is never a bad thing. I'm sure the beautiful people would always love to listen to it. I'm surprised I forgot to tell you this. I did know that, though, because after a post game one time, I was uploading our media avail that the beautiful people can hear on any given days that they do tune into our show here. And I sometimes to do so, I'll put on like YouTube so that my laptop doesn't go dark, and I put on one of our shows one time, and you have, of course, your Chicago Bears hat, and Charlie is just staring at my laptop screen after we're done, and I'm just like, I'm in my head panicking. I'm like. Why? Right? Why is he looking? Like, what's going on? And I try and start explaining myself, and he's like, no, and he's like starts talking about your Bears hat, and I was like, now wait a second. So when you told us that, I was like, it almost, that's so Raven, that where she goes deep in her mind. That was like the moment where I was like, oh, wait a second.
That's what's going on. So that was pretty cool. But again, Charlie and I just having this full-on conversation about the Bears and all of their off-season moves and all of this stuff. And he and I did disagree. He didn't like the Rome Odunze getting drafted with their second overall pick last year. But you know what? Fans are going to... But we could all agree about the Mitch Trubisky thing all over again that I bring.
Did he give a idea?
I forget. He was just like spewing all kinds of stuff. And I'm like... Okay. We're on the same page here.
It's
but
good to know.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the wrong question. Maybe we should explore next time we have media avail, or next time I'm around the men's volleyball team. I'm gonna start to see which of them are into like football and stuff. I've asked about basketball. We've asked about other sports before, but maybe it's football, because if their head
definitely
coach,
like local players.
Well, yeah, of course. But like if their head coach likes it, I gotta imagine that there's some sort of conversation, at least with like a good portion of them. Though then again, they're big chess guys. That's what we found out last year. And
That's true.
Still got to get Kurt Neuster down for a game or two of chess, and Tread, and get all these guys, because I am also a chess head. So.
And then it's got to be you. Olivia Austin is another chess player as well. So all of these.
We'll get the HSRN tournament up and going.
I can't play. I mean, I know how to play chess. I like to play against the computer only because
It's harder.
I'm too competitive, and I get mad if like I lose.
It's understandable.
So I almost don't want to play another human, because I'm just like, I can stand losing in a sport where someone is like physically like better than you.
Well, chess is just mostly strategy.
That's what I mean.
So
I'm like,
you feel not dumber, but it does.
It does.
Like, so in a way, it does.
So I take that personally if someone beats me at chess, because I'm like, they're smarter than me.
Well, my dad used to kick my akole in chess for the entirety of my childhood up until I was like 15, 16, and then I finally beat him once. And now it's not like I just consistently can give him the butt whooping back. It's... we can trade matches and whatnot. So shout out Pops for teaching me how to play chess. I'm still trying to get better and better.
No, you will not catch me playing a human on chess, because I would be the one to like flip the chessboard and be like, this is over. Anyways, we didn't even get to the game stuff, but we're gonna take a break.
Yeah, that's right.
When we come back, we'll close out hour number 1 talking more about the game part of baseball and softball that happened over the weekend. Next on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
This message presented by the HHSAA and the Hawaii Interscholastic Athletic Directors Association.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
It's the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, Ku'ulei Agbayani and Paul Brecht. Again, you guys can chime in on our live chat as we are streaming live on our YouTube channel, or text us at 808-888-KG1. That's 808-888-5481. Got a little away from our actual baseball-softball conversation that we had started with in the previous segment. But we got to make sure we touch on it just a little bit here, as both teams coming out with nice series wins over UC Davis. Again, the baseball team still has one more game to go, but they won the first two, so that way they already technically take the series. Softball also took the series over Davis. Theirs is all PAL, a 2-1 over UC Davis. On Saturday's doubleheader, the Rainbow Wahine dropped the first game to the Aggies 12-4, but then were able to bounce back in the second game on Saturday, beating them 6-0. And then yesterday, a very close game that was happening at the same time as the baseball game. It was funny because when the baseball game was kind of coming into an end, I'm like, oh, there's like a ton of people like walking out. But of course, it was because softball had ended as well. So Hawaii just squeaking out one 3-2 over UC Davis over at Rainbow Wahine Softball Stadium. Hawaii put up 2 runs in that first inning, and then it was completely scoreless up until the 6th inning. And then the Aggies got on the board at the top of the 6th with scoring 2 runs as well to tie the game. And then Hawaii able to put up 1 in the bottom of the 6th, and then not allow any in the 7th to close out that close 3-2 win over UC Davis. So again, the Rainbow Wahine taking the series after dropping the first game, but able to beat Davis. And now they improve to 4-4 in conference as they go on the road to take on Cal State Fullerton this weekend. Game times are at 5 o'clock p.m. 3 o'clock p.m. Hawaii time on Friday. And then the doubleheader 10 a.m. and 12:30 on Saturday. So, hey, got a series win, and we'll just keep rocking and rolling for this Rainbow Wahine softball squad.
Yeah, it's important to take those at home, right? Especially, and we've talked about these type of things before where you love to sweep at home, but that's never the expectation. You always have to win at home. You can never get swept on the road. And so far, the Rainbow Wahine have done a nice job keeping themselves within striking distance of that top 6 for the tournament later on in the year. I believe they sit in 7th right now, if my quick maths are doing quick enough maths. But overall, it's a very, very solid squad that's been dealing with some up and downs with pitching or hitting or injuries and, you know, the regular things that come with a softball season. And they do a nice job taking down UC Davis and now going on where they're just a half game out of any of the spots 6, 5, or 4. Long Beach State, Riverside, and Davis all sitting a half game ahead of the Rainbow Wahine at this point. So nice job by Bob Coolin's squad continuing to take care of business to put themselves where they need to be as the season goes on in what is shaping up to be an incredibly, incredibly competitive Big West.
And it's fun because we get a postseason tournament finally this year. So all of these teams could potentially see each other again when it comes to the Big West Conference tournament. All right, moving over to the baseball side, Hawaii winning their first 2 games against UC Davis. Saturday. I wanted to say Friday night again. Oh my gosh, it's throwing me off.
I've been struggling with it too.
Saturday evening, 7-2 win, and we saw the return of Jordan Donahue yesterday afternoon. Again, 16 zip. Woo! The interesting thing though about yesterday's game is that the normal ace, the second day starter, I guess you could say, because again, Itsuki starts on Saturday or usually Fridays, but he's like the first game 1 starter, and then you have Liam O'Brien. Liam O'Brien was not having it too much yesterday afternoon, only pitched 3.1 innings, and then Sebastian Gonzalez came in to pitch 4.2, and he got the win. But something I was thinking about, and do you think when it comes to this, I mean, but he is a older player, so it's not like he's a freshman coming in here, but like with Liam O'Brien, do you think, because he's usually pitching Saturday night, do you think pitching like in the sun in the middle of the afternoon, because that's something I thought about, like maybe this was the first time he's getting the start in the middle of like the hot sun and everything like that, and sometimes that can affect a player when it's like the elements that they haven't become accustomed to. I know that they practice at least in the hot sun, but a game time is a completely different. So could that be like one of the things that could have factored into him just like not having the stuff? Again, we're used to him going a lot longer than just a little over 3 innings, right? He's been really, really solid for the Rainbow Warriors on Saturday nights usually. But I wonder if that could have had a little bit of an impact on his performance yesterday.
I have no idea. I'd have to ask him. It certainly could. I know that when I was a pitcher, that I was a very funky individual. I needed to go through particular steps so that my mindset was right when I got onto the mound. Luckily, I did it in a way where it allowed me to be a reliever. It's a little bit different when you are a starter. I don't know. Sometimes you also just don't have it. Sometimes your control isn't there. He had 4 walks, a hit by pitch, 5 free passes is not a recipe for success by any stretch of the imagination. And it's also not something that Rich Hill or this entire coaching staff really wants to see from their pitchers. It's something that Hawaii does exceptionally well, is control base runners, control the amount of traffic that gets onto the bases. So when you don't have it, there are a embarrassment of riches in the bullpen to come in, and as we saw, Sebastian Gonzalez came in and spun 4 2/3 innings of really immaculate ball. So it just happens. Sometimes it's a long season. You throw a lot of pitches. He has been, lights out recently, and maybe he has just a little bit of fatigue. Maybe he had a rough day, and he comes back next week. He comes back next time, and he'll be the Liam O'Brien that we come to expect at this point.
I think something, though, on the positive side that was really impressive yesterday in that, again, 16 zip win. And you got to do a lot in order to kind of put up or bring 16 runs home. But some of the base running yesterday, especially like Ben Ziegler, Namoa, like I don't know what it is about, like, I guess maybe because you can see as it's happening in real time, obviously when you're not watching it on TV, right? Because you see the landscape of the entire field. And I was like, the people I was with too yesterday watching the game is like, wow, he's really fast. He looks a lot faster, like when you're watching him run the bases and everything like that. I mean, he essentially created a run for himself. Like at one point, he got like a double, and then he moved over to third, and then it was beautiful to watch. And I think that's something that this men's baseball team, this baseball team has just been so impressive, is because they're base running, and then obviously allowing zero to come in for UC Davis is because defensively they're impressive as well. And I think that's why they've just been so fun to watch so far. And then now they get one of their best guys back, like, into the lineup as well. And Itsuki, like, taking us back to Friday. Okay, never mind. Sorry. I was like, we should probably take our break before we start going out. That's why I noticed the time. I was going to kick it to you, Paul, to kind of take us back to Friday, because that was a very impressive game as well. But we do need to take a break. So we'll come back and continue our baseball conversation for hour number 2 on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den, hour number 2. I'm Ku'ulei Agbayani alongside Paul Brecht on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM, AM 760, and hawaiisportsradio.com. Thank you for tuning in this and every weekday morning from 8 to 10 and streaming and watching our stream live every single Monday on our YouTube channel. We appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. If you're not watching on YouTube and can't chime in on the live chat, you guys can text us at 808-888-KGU1. That's 808-888-5481 if you want to get in on the conversation. And right now we are continuing our conversation from the end of the previous hour and talking some University of Hawaii baseball. Again, the Basebos are still in action tonight, but won the first 2 games of the series against UC Davis, so have taken the series. And then they are also in action tomorrow to host the University of Hawaii Hilo. So a lot of baseball for all of the fans out there. But Paul, I wanted to kind of go back to Friday night because that was another nice win for the Rainbow Warriors. And Saturday. My gosh, this is going to mess me up so much at this point. Like, thanks a lot for totally changing everything.
Had me confused for a second. I'm like,
the world as we know it has so changed because they moved the game. Going back to Saturday night, 7-2 win over UC Davis. But yes, Paul, if you can take us back to Saturday night. Still at the tip of my tongue was about to be Friday as well. Once again, my gosh. And again, we saw Jordan Donahue kind of come back in there, and Itsuki Takayama are kind of have another good day.
I mean, it was the performance that you wanted to see, right? This is an important series. All of them are important series, every game. Kind of like our friend Charlie Wade says, all wins are good, all losses are bad. That does feel the case, and they've taken care of business, and they set the tone on the very first night where Itsuki came out and, tossed a gem, 7 innings strong, and I'm talking strong. Gives up the 2-run home run after the Bows go up 3-0 in the bottom of the first inning. Jared Quant 2 feet away, maybe, from a grand slam. Realistically speaking, on a different night, that ball probably goes out. And it was hit real hard, goes off the wall, a bases clearing triple in the bottom of the first inning, and Hawaii never looked back after that. Those 3 runs really were all that they needed. Like I mentioned, Itsuki, the only runs that he gives up, the 2-run home run in the top of the 4th inning, and that one was also a blast. That was very much so a major home run, but outside of that, he gives up 4 total hits throughout the night, doesn't walk anybody, strikes out 7, continues to look exactly what we thought he could be on the mound. But he did his best Shohei Ohtani impression, right? Where he does that, but then he goes 1 for 2 at the plate with an RBI double, actually a 2 RBI double, I should say, helps out his own cause, knocks out the runs that he gave up himself. And it was fun. This is something that you don't get to see all that often. And even when you do see it, you don't necessarily see it at this level, right? Where he is so good. He was... what league did he play in this past summer? I think it was the Cape Cod League. I think he was the Cape Cod Pitcher of the Year. That is a really impressive league. To do that, I kind of circled him and was like, all right, this is a kid who can really be special this year for Hawaii. And kudos to the coaching staff for unleashing him as a true 2-way player. And it was also nice to see, as you mentioned, Jordan Donahue get back in the lineup, made some really nice defensive plays, made all 4 plays that came to him throughout the night. Didn't record a hit in that first day that he was back. That's perfectly okay because we saw how he did on Sunday. All things were moving in the right direction. Ben Ziegler-Namoa continues to be as productive as you could ask for from him. He really adds something different to the lineup where he does have the pop, right? I love the lefty swing. I love his bat to ball skills. I love the speed you and I were talking about that is a little bit deceptive because he's kind of a bigger guy. Not, and I'm not saying like, oh, he's big in terms of dense
he's
or
kind
whatever,
of like
but
shorter. Like he's not very tall per se. He's like average height. Not like Major League Baseball tall height, but
he's
like
also not a string bean either.
Yeah.
Like you look at him, he's a good athlete, but
Yes.
he's not like, you don't look at him and think sprinter.
Yeah.
And he's got a really nice speed tool and his base running, he's a smart ball player. Just in general, I can't give him enough kudos because he is really somebody who makes the job a lot easier for that Hawaii baseball team. Also, something else to mention with them, they're the 2-out kings. I mean, this team, every single run they score, it feels like comes with 2 outs. They're like, oh, who cares?
Yeah,
who cares?
Who cares?
As long as the inning's not over, we're a threat to score, and that makes them really dangerous when you add in what we talked about to close out our number 1, which is a really impressive pitching staff, whether it's Liam O'Brien, whether it's Sebastian Gonzalez, whether it's Itsuki Takimoto. Freddie Rodriguez continues to be phenomenal out of the bullpen, and the names continue on. Cooper Walls, who will go today. It is a very well-rounded Hawaii baseball team. It is really disappointing that they lost the 2 on the road that they did, but it's okay. Losses happen. They just need to continue the winning ways. A sweep would go a long way for them should they be able to do so against a quality Aggie squad.
Yeah, it's interesting how you brought up the 2-out no problem, and I was like, that sounds familiar. That sounds like what we heard from Bob Coolin last week about that's how his squad is, where it's like 2 outs, no problem. We're still going to go out there and have no fear as if there are no outs on our side right now and try to just, get it in play, get some runners in. And as you mentioned, it would be nice if they get the sweep. They are in action tonight at 6:35 at the Les. You guys can also watch it on Spectrum Sports, and then they host UH Hilo tomorrow, which will it's kind of fun. I mentioned this last week, where if you guys go out and you're just a baseball fan, it'll be interesting because usually Coach Hill manages the pitching and just like pitching by committee. Usually, like he gets a bunch of pitchers in there that'll go like maybe 1.5 innings, depending, of course, if they get lit up or not, because we saw that change happen I think in 0.2 innings or something when they played Chaminade. They're not trying to lose, but he's trying to get his guys that normally won't get into the game.
People opportunity, but also wants to win every single game humanly possible, and that's why I love him. And of course,
not burn out the guys that he needs to have for this weekend, right? As they go on the road again after playing Hilo, they go to CSUN for their 3-game series this on Friday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Friday's game at 2:30 p.m. Hawaii time. Saturday, another afternoon game, 1:30 p.m. Hawaii time. And then Sunday at 10 a.m. And then on the flip side, next week, they will host HPU. That game you can hear on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network as well. No television, but you guys can tune in to, Kyle and Alan Mia. I was thinking, who is it? I think Alan Mia. We'll see.
Nobody knows the trouble Alan Mia's seen.
So, UH versus HPU, but still, should they come out with this sweep, though, this will be another test because they have proven that they can win at the Les Murakami Stadium, and we talked about that a lot, right? Like, they were able to take the series against UC Santa Barbara at home, and we'll see what happens tonight against UC Davis. Had big wins earlier in the season against Marshall and some games against Wichita State. But then when they went on the road to play UC Riverside and dropping that series was somewhat shocking. And even when you look at the Big West Conference standings right now, UC Riverside 2-7 in the Big West. So thinking that 2 of those games came to one of the top teams in the Big West, where Hawaii is sitting at 5-3 behind Cal Poly, who is currently undefeated, and UC Irvine at 8-1. And then you got Hawaii at 3, and then UC Davis is right behind Hawaii at 3-2. So for the only 2 wins that UC Riverside has in conference to come against a top 3 team in the conference, that's where you're like, all right, that's a little wonky of a thing that we're looking at. So Hawaii will get tested again when they go on the road to face CSUN, and CSUN, the bottom of the Big West as well at 2-7. So
that's when you need a sweep like that. Just frankly, you need a sweep there where you're watching Cal Poly, who has been, I don't know if a surprise is the right term to use, but they've been really, really good. They're I can't say sleeper. They're unbeaten in the conference, but that's a team that you play on the road as well, along with UC Irvine. So you'd like to start to get to the same feeling that you have at home, which is, this Rainbow Warrior baseball team inside the Last feels almost unbeatable on any given night. You want to start to find that feeling on the road. A good way to do that is against a CSUN team that is still struggling to find who it is and how they are this season. So I know we're getting ahead of ourselves. Got to finish out the job tonight, and a really important one against UC Davis. You hope to see Cooper Walls continue to build off of what the performances have been recently, especially against a ranked team or a formerly ranked team. They won't be ranked after getting swept by Irvine. There is a lot of really good baseball still to be played. Wins are at a premium, and you just want to keep the good vibes rolling, especially after a 16-0 win last night.
Yeah, and to be fair, Cal Poly's 6-0 record so far has come in the hands of a couple of series sweeps against teams that are in the bottom half of the Big West. Swept Cal State Fullerton and swept Long Beach State. Long Beach State only 2-7 in the Big West as well, and Cal State Fullerton 4-5. So Hawaii will have to travel and go to San Luis Obispo to play the Mustangs this season. Kind of a couple of series away, though. Again, got to take care of business first and see how you do tonight,
What a
and then
brutal
going on
trip. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at this now.
And then going on the road to play CSUN, come back home to host HPU on April 1st, and then play Long Beach State in that first week of April. Go on the road, and we'll actually play Santa Clara for a single game before playing Cal Poly, and they will stay on the road. And this is what Paul was kind of mentioning.
Yeah.
They will stay on the road. So Santa Clara first, play a 3-game series, obviously Big West series against Cal Poly. Then they play a single at USC, and then they have to play Irvine, who will likely stay at the top of the conference as they have been one of the top teams in the Big West. So that's their road trip, everybody. So we talk about testing. So you really need to come out with that sweep at CSUN and prove to yourselves that you guys can string together at least a series win at CSUN, right? You can't have what you had against UC or Riverside, a bottom team in the conference.
Can't lose the series. A sweep is unfair. You're right. That especially because
2 out of 3.
Baseball is such a funky sport where it's the definition of on any given day type of thing. I mean, that's realistically speaking why they lost the series at Riverside is they lost the extra inning game that a day after putting up 17 runs, they couldn't get past 3. And, you need the consistency on the road as well. And you get a good opportunity against CSUN before what is, a juggernaut road trips coming up later on in April.
That's brutal. So their last game, their April 6th would be the last game of that Long Beach State series here at home. And then they don't play another game at home until April 22nd against Chaminade. So they are gone for a significant amount of time. And again, that's why I'm looking at this CSUN series as you got to take this. You got to take a series on the road to prove to yourself that you can still bring you can bring the Manoa magic with you when you travel on the road.
We're still fighting
and come out with
for
this.
Operation Honolulu Regional,
Exactly.
folks. You can't
That's
have
what we're
more
doing.
losses. It's just you can't have
And
it.
you can't lose to the bottom of the barrel Big West teams, that's for sure.
Yeah, also, by the way, just looking further down the schedule, I know we are still in March.
Yeah.
Once you get to May, it's still you're going to get tested because you have Oregon State coming to the West. They're a top 5 team in the country right now. So man, there are a lot of really good opponents. We're gonna get a good idea of just how good this Hawaii team really, really is in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and that's who Cal Poly actually most recently played. They
Walk-off home run.
Lost it 2-1, but able to take one game at least, 7-6 over the Beavers, and we'll see what happens in the future. Anyways, gotta take a break. We'll be right back on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Live it up in the afterglow. Up late, talk low, push the limit, fascinate, feel good, activate.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Ku'ulei Agbayani and Paul Brecht on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM, AM 760, hawaiisportsradio.com, and streaming live on our YouTube channel like we do this in every Monday. So thank you for tuning in with us. Something that we didn't really get to, well, we touched on it last week because we saw the, the kind of surprise postings and videos of everyone being inducted into the UH Sports Circle of Honor this year, but we now have the 5 new members and the full list of the members that are going in this year as they were announced, the 40th class of the UH Sports Circle of Honor, which includes former softball player Kelly Majum. You got Chris McLaughlin, announcer. You guys can still see him on Spectrum Sports for volleyball. John Nakamura, a former softball coach. Chad Owens, former UH football player, as we know. And, of course, Colton Wong, the guy we like to chuckle that saved the career of Mike Trapasso during that time when he was playing. But kind of that amazing time to keep up with UH baseball, but a very awesome class of inductees. This is the epitome, and I like that there is kind of a little bit of different avenues. You said, you got a coach, you got a few former players, and then you have an announcer that everyone is so familiar with when it comes to volleyball. So I think that's pretty cool. This is a very nice, well-rounded class. I mean, every year you kind of there are certain members that are in the class that really speak to you as well, but this one is interesting. I will read a little bit more about John Nakamura because just like myself, I wasn't too familiar with him. So a staple on the UH softball coaching staff for 25 years, joined Alika Thompson's inaugural coaching staff in 1987 and stayed on through Rayla Allison's 2 seasons, and for Bob Coolin from 1992 to 2009, helped coach 18 all-conference performers on the coaching staff for 9 NCAA tournament teams and 3 conference championship squads, a pitcher/outfielder for UH in the 1950s, and became a respected coach in the local community, teacher in the Department of Education system for 28 years. Woo woo! We always love to give our shout out to our teachers. Coached high school baseball for several schools and led Kailua to the 1969 state championship. So that is pretty cool for John Nakamura. And I believe it was the volleyball broadcast that I was watching, or maybe baseball, that said he was the late John Nakamura. So especially congratulations to his family that will represent him for the ceremonies and everything that's happening on Sunday, May 18th. That's the green and white celebration at the Royal Hawaiian Resort. And for more information and table sales, if you guys are interested in being a part of that event, you can go to koa'anuenue.org. So again, some of the other names on here, everyone has been really familiar with. I feel like you can't, to a Hawaii fan, I mean, even to you, Paul, who is relatively new to the Hawaii sports landscape, even you, especially those former players, and of course Chris McLaughlin, you're like, oh, I totally know those names. But that's why I wanted to give extra love to John Nakamura, because even like myself, right, I wasn't entirely familiar with all that he contributed. So that's pretty cool, and that's why it brings me back to I looking at the Circle of Honor class, and I just love, again, how well-rounded it is with former student athletes, an announcer, and then also a former coach, and of course, extra shout out once again, the fact that he was a teacher in the Department of Education.
Yeah, this class rocks. I can't put it in any other terms other than that. And yes, unfortunately, Coach Nakamura did pass back in March of 2024. So, very much so glad that he got this honor, even though it may not be one that he gets to see. I'm glad that a lot of his family gets to. Chris McLaughlin does a phenomenal job on so many of those Spectrum broadcasts. He, honestly speaking, as somebody who is not necessarily as well-versed in volleyball, or who was not as well-versed in volleyball, I've leaned on listening to Chris a lot, or trying to learn as much as I can from him, even just through osmosis, listening to the way that he asks questions during media avail. And he is among the nicest people I think I have ever met in my life. so really, I was really, really excited for him. I was excited his family was in town. That was a really cool surprise. And as somebody who's a big sap, I just love all of the surprises. Like I love the videos. I love the way that UH went about it. I love all the surprise stuff. I love to watch the emotions. Chad Owens, I thought that was a really fun one with him and CB and the video on the field and, you know, having it pop up on the big board.
Yeah.
If you haven't had an opportunity to watch any of the videos, they're all on Hawaii Athletics social media pages. They are great, really, really nice. But I thought that was really cool. And kind of in the same vein with Kelly, you know, with the family in there and even Colton. His family's there. Like, I don't know.
You have like the kids that come in. And
it touches your heart a little bit extra.
Kelly Majum's one, or Kelly Elms technically, but we'll use Kelly Majum because that's what most fans are familiar with her name while she was playing here. It was cute because I guess she got called into the athletics department or called in to do like an interview. That was kind of the guise of she was coming in there to do an interview for like UH, but at the same time, her family was recording the like congratulations, you're in the circle of honor, because when they walked in, when she was in the conference room in the athletics department, she's like, because she was watching the video, and then her kids walk in, she's like, wait a minute. Well, she said when she was watching the video, she's like, these are the clothes that I dressed my kids with this morning.
It was the ultimate mom moment.
It was so good.
I was just like, oh my mom memory of every single. Wait, this is like, because here's the thing.
The clothes I put on my kids this morning.
Maybe it's like you remember one or two outfit. Like it's not just one or two outfits. It's like remembering all of. It was very cute. All of them were awesome. This is a very, very great class. You don't really get into the circle of honor without doing something pretty spectacular, and each of them really, really have dedicated a large portion of their lives to being a Hawaii sports icon. So congratulations to each of the five. It is an incredible honor. It's an incredible class. I will say this. A little shocked it took this long for Colton Wong to get in. Maybe I need to brush up on what the rules are. And you know, maybe kind of like the Hall of Fame in professional sports, you need like 5 years out. So it's like maybe they needed 15 years out or whatever it was for him. I got to look it up just because I'm looking at it and I'm just like, he's like one of 3 people ever to be in the baseball like Mount Rushmore out on the center field of Les Murakami Stadium, where you have the guy who's the stadium's literally named after, the greatest pitcher in the history of the program, and then Colton Wong. Those are like the 3 guys that are out there. And maybe I'm missing one, but for him to be the 10th baseball player to be in, I was just like,
there's got to be like there's
some stipulation that like he had to wait this amount of time because an incredible baseball career here in Hawaii with both UH and living here. And then obviously off to the major leagues and still trying to continue his career. So, awesome class. I could not love this class more.
The Chad Owens one is funny too, like his video, because I guess CB maybe his wife Rena also was like, oh, we're going to go to campus to record like videos, like basically like workout videos in a way,
like it was so funny,
or instructional videos of like how to like because I mean everyone is so familiar with Chad, right? Because he was just electrifying.
And here's one of the program greats.
Like and so obviously you want him to be able to like pass on his knowledge to the next generation, but he was like going through the videos and then afterwards he's like, wait, are we going to use these video clips or not? And it was so funny.
It was so funny.
But yeah, you're right. Like with CB there, and I know his wife Rena had posted a different angle of the announcement on her social media as well, and so it was just so funny. Just everything how they got him there, saying like this is what you're gonna do, and then just a complete surprise. He was emotional, So that was really, really a fun video to watch, and like you mentioned, with CB being the one to kind of tell him and to turn around and look at the big screen. So that was cool. And Colton's one was just, like him and then his family and his 2 little ones, really cute. Chris McLaughlin, I want to go back to him again. It's just, I mean, he's been part of the broadcast since the 80s. And it's pretty cool how he like called like so many games for so many years with a Jim Leahy, and then now he sits alongside Kanoa Leahy. And I swear, because sometimes I go and look back at some of those broadcasts with Jim Leahy and Chris McLaughlin, and we're talking at least like 90s-ish. The guy still looks and sounds the same. I'm like,
he is aged.
Chris McLaughlin, like, you have not aged since I remember watching you as a kid, and he's still like the same, and I love it so much.
Very gracefully.
Yeah.
I will say that he is. If I can age as well as he has, I have done a lot right in my life. I will say that, because he looks great, he sounds great. That's something. Now I'm going to be a nerd really fast. That's something that a lot of people maybe don't understand about our profession. Is like it's hard to sound good and sound the same and have the same inflection and have the same energy level and all of these things, all while still, by the way, being as sharp as a tack anytime. He is all of it and has not skipped a beat at all. He is incredibly impressive. There's a reason that he's been doing it a long time, and they haven't kicked him off the air. You know, they've kept inviting him back. You got to do something right.
I mean, he's super sharp. That's why. Like, why would you
so
not
good.
have him alongside
Incredible.
Kanoa for the Spectrum broadcast? And then on the flip side too, I mean, he's another one that contributed to the next generation. Was a volleyball coach for a long time. Won 11 state titles. And
he coached
for
Obama.
Punahou boys basketball team. 3 state titles for the boys basketball team, but it was also an administrator, counselor, and teacher at Punahou School. So another teacher. And I know Kelly Majum is also a teacher. So we've got like, hey, that's like the honorable mentions tally on like this list of all of the cool athletic accomplishments or things that have to deal with that. Again, you guys know, like, the teaching profession holds a special place in our hearts here at Hawaii Sports Radio Network. So shout out to all of you teachers. And it's cool that there are a few that are here that are teachers and coaches and obviously parents and everything like that. So again, there is something just so special about this year's Circle of Honor class that I was really excited to see happen for everybody.
It was a very, very special group. It was a lot of special announcements. It's supposed to be a special honor. It very much so felt like that. I'm looking forward to seeing them continue with this honoring of this group, and continue to bring you guys all the thoughts that we have on it.
Woo! So again, the 5 new members in the UH Sports Circle of Honor being inducted in the class of 2025, the 40th class of the UH Sports Circle of Honor: Kelly Majum, Chris McLaughlin, John Nakamura, Chad Owens, and Colton Wong. And the green and white celebration is scheduled for Sunday, May 18th at the Royal Hawaiian Resort. For more information and table sales, if you guys want to be part of the festivities and the celebration for the green and white and UH Sports Circle of Honor, you guys can go to koa'anuenue.org. That's koa'anuenue.org. Got to take a break. We'll be right back on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Let's go.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Ku'ulei Agbayani and Paul Brecht on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM, AM 760, and hawaiisportsradio.com. Thank you for tuning in on our YouTube channel as well. So shout out to everybody that's been watching. Want to get back to our NCAA March Madness and basketball conversation, but before getting to just games that we're looking forward to as we move into the Sweet 16 of the men's and women's tournaments. Again, maybe the women's one we'll kind of chat about tomorrow because there's still a ton of games that have to go on today to set the rest of the Sweet 16 for the women. But Paul, already some news happening as if like the transfer portal being open, and this is like not even used for the transfer portal, but this is the world of college sports, especially college basketball, but already some stuff going on, like, and it's just like fresh.
Yeah, all the thing does is just move. And I've said this before on this show, and I'll continue to say it. The coaching portal is never closed. Coaching portal is always open. These guys are always looking to see if they can take the next job, and that is their right. That's what they should do. It's what all of us do when we're in our job field, you know? The head coach at Colorado State, I don't know why I suddenly blanked on that, Nico Medved, he is taking the Minnesota head coaching job, Golden Gophers quality program there, the associate head coach. I don't know how to say his name, so I'm not even going to try to say his name. Will be taking over at Colorado State. There are a lot of schools who are moving on and moving up. We saw Indiana move on from Mike Woodson, or Mike Woodson retire. I don't remember exactly which it was, but one way or another, Mike Woodson, former New York Knicks head coach, is no longer the head coach there, but it is Darian DeVries, who was the former West Virginia head coach. We saw Ben McCollum, who was at Drake. He is now taking a step up as well. I'm trying to remember where I saw him off to. Was it West Virginia? I don't think so. It's somewhere. You saw Texas move on from their head coach after getting knocked out, Rodney Terry. Yeah, a lot of moves going on. Ryan Odom to the Virginia Cavaliers. Sean Miller, Xavier's head coach, moving on to be the Texas head coach, the new Texas head coach.
Whoa.
Yep. He's the former Arizona coach too. Remember that? He's a super sweaty guy. Sean Miller is.
See, that's crazy. Again, when we kind of like look through the list, and I mean, we go back right with UNLV moving on from Kevin Kruger and all of that stuff, and so like I'm looking at the Mountain West standings. Colorado State finished the regular season second in the Mountain West to New Mexico,
Yep.
right? And now their coach moves on to, of all programs, like Minnesota. Like, not your, hey, it doesn't scream like men's basketball, like
Big
in your
Ten.
face to that. And that's the kind
It
of,
is
but
as
then
simple as
it just brings me back to my point, right? That I've been harping on when it comes to everyone wanting that change at the men's basketball head coaching position at UH. I was like, I get the feelings, I get to be passionate, but I mean, who are you going to attract to this job? Because everyone's saying like, is Iran going to be able to coach in the Mountain West? And I'm like, one, I think he can. Two, even if he's not there, who are you going to get that can be competitive in the Mountain West? Because you're going to have to find someone that is an up-and-comer that may need to go through a few growing pains and struggles. Because if Colorado State, the upper echelon, who does invest a lot into their athletics programs, I mean, they have brand new facilities and all of that, if their head men's basketball coach can get poached by Minnesota, like, because McNeese is different in NC State. NC State really does want to be good at basketball. Like they are more of a basketball team, but when you're talking Minnesota, like this isn't the hockey team, right? Like they're trying to get good at basketball. So that's kind of puts it in perspective, I hope, for a lot of people, that this is what we're saying when we're like, hey, we're moving into the Mountain West, and Hawaii needs to find a way to compete in terms of, and not all of the blame necessarily going on the coaches / the players. It's everybody getting on board and finding ways to fundraise, because you need to bring yourself up when it comes to being able to afford a top-notch coach that will be able to come here and change around the program like that heading into the Mountain West. Or you're only going to be able to afford an up-and-comer that will likely go through some growing pains, just like we've seen with Timmy Chang and the football team, right? Like, it's not as easy as it sounds. As like, let's just make this switch and we can attract all of these coaches that will come and coach here and everything like that. Anyways, I'll get off my high horse because I just wanted to kind of emphasize that point once again. When you bring up a Colorado State coach, again, the Rams finished second in the Mountain West this past season, just got knocked out recently, and there's already a change. Like, that's how fast it all moves.
You know what I'm a little surprised about is that the Big West doesn't have more coaches that are just kind of snatched year over year. Like, the fact that Russell Turner has been at UC Irvine as long as he has, I'm curious, does Eric Olin, does he start to get some interest with how UC San Diego has looked over the past few years? Like, a lot of these larger schools love to snatch up these coaches from the smaller schools. I do just find it interesting. By the way, Drake's head coach, Ben McCollum, who I was trying to remember who he had taken the job of, it's Iowa. He took the Iowa job, not the West Virginia job. The West Virginia job, to my knowledge, is still open. Curious about what they're going to do to fill that one. Utah, another job that was open after this season. They let go of Craig Smith after about a 500-year. They're playing in that basketball. I don't know what the basketball tournament's called. It's the stupid.
There's like so many. Even like USC is playing in some random basketball
it's the
tournament.
one at the end of the month that I don't know. It's like the college whatever. It's not March Madness. I don't really care. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not March Madness. It's not the NIT. But yeah, they bring in Alex Jensen, who I think he's from the Mavericks organization or something like that. Will Wade over to NC State, and just a whole lot of movement all over the place. In total, about 35 schools that have had their job open, about 16 or 17 that have filled said job at this point. So as the transfer portal opens today, reminder that the coaching portal is always open, that these coaches are still continuing their discussions on maybe they move on to another place, whether it's a move up, move down, a lateral move, whatever it may be. There's going to be a lot of movement, not just players, but coaches over these next week or so.
Yeah, Utah one is interesting. Weren't they like just pretty good like last year maybe?
Relatively recent. Well,
yeah.
They went to the NIT semifinals last year, I believe it was. They were like 500-ish this year.
That's what I mean, like the margin for error. I mean, let's see. No, conference 8-12 in the Big 12.
They finished
so
11th, I think, out of 13 teams or something like that.
Houston was at the top, obviously, with only one loss in conference. Then you got Texas Tech. And then BYU. And that's the thing, right? When it comes to Utah and BYU, like if you're Utah or BYU, you can't see the other team do significantly better than you in any of the major sports, right? So Utah's looking at that and seeing how well BYU did this season, 14-6 in the Big 12. And they're like, all right, now we got to make a change. Like, this is incredible, like how quickly this is all moving.
Sorry, I'm going to ask you a question that you have maybe a 0.5% chance of knowing. Do you possibly know what Minnesota's former head coach's name was?
No.
It's your fault, Koo, that they have to fill the role anyway. Ben Johnson left the role. Their former head coach is named Ben Johnson, so I had to get that joke in there real quick. It's all the Bears' fault.
It's all the Bears'
It's
fault.
all the Bears' fault that we see this type of movement. But yeah, no, Colorado State, not even, 24 hours after getting knocked out in a heartbreaker of a buzzer beater. And what a play that was, by the way, by Derek Queen going to his left, finishing high off glass, a beautiful shot to win the game and send the Terps to Sweet 16. Not even 24 hours later, Colorado State says goodbye to their head coach as he heads up north to lead the Golden Gophers.
When I think that's why everyone was so shocked, right? Like with the McNeese situation, that everyone knew that their head coach was
very open.
Like, Will Wade was very open, like, I'm out, like, I'm going to NC State, and told his players and everything like that, because I mean, kudos to him. Didn't want like maybe his players to find out another way, or like I said, letting his players know so he can take the top ones with him to NC State when the transfer portal is open, so they can start doing that paperwork and everything. But clearly, the decision was made with Colorado State. Like, you don't actually like go down and then like get a phone call right after you go down. It's already kind of discussions like, hey, like we're looking at you, you're a top pick, blah 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 blah. So that's kind of the interesting sides of both. Like, you saw the McNeese thing, very very public and open, and then Colorado State, it was like, oh, that's been going on, and like that, he's all gone. Now Colorado State has to, well, they found a coach. Like, what?
And it's funny because I like want to start a conversation about like next year's Hawaii men's basketball team, right? Because I sit here and I'm like, oh, well, if Hawaii was going to make a move, they would have made a move at this point. We'd know, we'd know EG would be gone by now. But then it's like, I start to get doubt in my mind about that, where I'm just like, I don't know, all these other schools are like, they're still moving at this point. I'm like, I mean, maybe I shouldn't be so quick. And to be fair, I mean, shoot, I shouldn't assume that other schools with as many openings that there are going to be, that other schools won't come knocking here. Like, it's just, it is going to be, oh my God, Code, the next few weeks, I need to restock my Celsius supply is what I need to do.
Oh, yeah, these next few weeks are going to be crazy. But you're right, like, I doubt from the UH standpoint anything is going to happen with Iran, because honestly, if you didn't make a move by now, you are going to be digging yourself a bigger hole, and you
put
look
yourself
worse.
in a really tough spot, because now you're competing against all these other schools that have other job openings already as it was. So if you're going to make a move, you should have just made a move as soon as the season was over.
Yeah. So it shouldn't happen,
that,
because
that is what my assumption would be.
If there, like I said, you could probably find us blasting the decision if that were to happen, because just the timing. Again, there's different reasons to go that way and to retain. Like, there's a ton of reasons.
Both sides.
I get it. But it would have had to
But
have been made.
you need to.
Timing is key, especially in this day and age and in this landscape. So I think the fact that there was no move made then, and for the record, that they did meet, like Iran and Lois did meet. What was part of that conversation, I do not know, but I can confirm that they did actually speak and meet, because I know that was a big thing about the sense of urgency. So, I mean, by all indications, but this doesn't necessarily handcuff Iran to staying here as well.
Well, and
that's one thing that could still happen.
Without an extension, I would be surprised, right? Because, I mean, I think about it in a professional way, right? Because I think college sports specifically have become more professional-like, where coaches who aren't tied down. Reddy, you're going to laugh at me for this one. You've seen the movie Moneyball, right?
Of course.
Okay. You know how the manager wants like an extension or whatever? It's that type of thing, right? Where, well, maybe you have eyes on the door out, where it's like, well, I don't know, man. It's one of those things that you need the comfort of long term. Well, the same reason why it may be more difficult to recruit. You need more time. You need more leash to it. So, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody keeps knocking on the door, because it's been a decade of quality here. Mm-hmm. And I know fans don't want to hear that, but it has been. This has been a brutal year, and it'd be funny to see after, of course, one of his worst years, him get poached. But nonetheless, this is a guy who has proven to do more with less for a while here. Yeah. So I still think it is important to remember that I think we have a good head coach. Will things turn around next year? I don't know. I can't tell you. I'd like to know what they're going to do in the portal, and I'd like to talk about what they should do in the portal as well.
That's what we're hoping. We're hoping that maybe there will be some.
I just want news so I can talk about that.
We can start talking about the future of this men's basketball program in terms of the players that are hopefully coming in, and via potentially the transfer portal. Obviously, we know Hunter Carter and everything like that that has been signed. So that, yeah, like Paul said, that would be nice to talk about. All right, we got to take a step for our final break of the show. So we'll be right back to close it out here on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
The
Wake up in the den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back, Ku'ulei and Paul on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network. Closing it out in hour number 2. You guys can listen live every single weekday morning from 8 to 10 and streaming live on our YouTube channel every single Monday. Having a good time. I don't know. But yeah, no Michael today. It's like
I was kind of expecting a text from him at some point to want to hop on via Zoom or him come in during the second
football
hour.
Conversation, so he's
Yeah, he doesn't want to get in on any basketball propaganda, I guess. He didn't want to talk baseball. Maybe he just hates us. It's okay.
I know he is busy. We are hitting like back into another busy week again. Last week was like busy, but more because it was like catching up, but we didn't really have too many broadcasts, and like we mentioned, volleyball wasn't on a bye, and it's like all of this stuff, and it's like our first week without basketball, really, because it's like the week before we had women's basketball, so it was like our first week of local or UH basketball, so it's kind of a weird, wonky week. I know. So now that's why we were saying we move forward, and hopefully we can start getting some news, whether regarding the transfer portal that we can talk about. But looking at this week, though, I want to keep reminding you guys
just
that
after last year. Sorry.
Yeah, just after last. We just want to look to the future at this point.
Well, also just how slow it was last year. Let's
Yeah.
a little faster this year, guys. How about that? Anyway, sorry.
Yeah,
back
we
to
have to wait till the end of the summer. Oh, yeah. Anyways, so coming up tomorrow, I know that's what Michael is also working on, and what I got to work on today is prepping for tomorrow's game, the opening game for the OIA, or opening games for the OIA girls flag football season. I know
It's here. I can't believe it's here. I'm excited for it.
So, and then now that I'm going, it's so weird, like going on Scoring Live and seeing an extra tab on there that says flag football, which is really, really cool. I'm like, wow, I can't believe we've made it, because I know the ILH season, their official game was on Saturday. They beat Iolani 13-12, Kamehameha Schools Kapalama, to open up the ILH season. So that is already
Sounds
underway.
pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm like, man. On some of the other islands, though, you got some blowouts that were happening, but some other close games. Kekalike beating Maui 19-14. Baldwin, though, over Maui 40-9. So some of these schools playing multiple games in a single
they
day.
play back to back.
Yeah,
Dang.
so that's kind of, I mean, we mentioned, right? Like, it's kind of a shorter game. It moves really, really quickly. Obviously, the body doesn't take as much of a beating because it's not contact like tackle football until.
Some of these ladies, though,
I was going to say, as a former student athlete, yeah, we could get, if the right button is pushed.
Well, just because you're
let's
not
just
tackling
say,
doesn't mean a little bump
there might be an
won't
extra like
happen.
grab of the
Right.
flag, but like a little hip push.
Right. They're
Not encouraging this, by the way. I'm just saying,
But
speaking from experience, as like I was one of those players, like the wrong button gets pushed, and we are talking tackle football at this
competitive.
point.
This is competitive athletics. Like if watching these young ladies on the volleyball court, on the softball field, on the basketball court, if any of those experiences have told me anything, I'm not taking any of these young women lightly when they step out on the gridiron, even if it is flag football. They're serious. They're there.
Right.
It's not some powder puff, Joe Schmo out there just running around. This is real flag football. That's why I'm so excited about it. Like, it is really, really exciting. I'm super pumped that we have it on our station. I'm super pumped that people can follow along with that. It's going to be really fun as we kind of get to learn along with all of these coaches and players.
So bear with your broadcasters tomorrow evening. That being, well, Kyle's a pro, so bear with the color analyst for flag football tomorrow, being myself, because I will be learning as we go with flag football, but hopefully we can bring you a phenomenal broadcast, and I know we will bring you either way. Again, Kyle Galdera with the play-by-play, and I will be alongside him tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock p.m. We'll bring you the first game between McKinley and Kaimuki, and then the second game around 7:30 p.m. against with Moanalua versus Roosevelt. That's where we'll be tomorrow evening, bringing you all that action. But also for, like we mentioned earlier, if you guys are baseball fans, the baseball team is in action to play University of Hawaii Hilo coming into town. And also, it's like, but wait, there's more for all of our volleyball fans, specifically women's volleyball fans. That is the spring matches, or the cap off to the spring, in which the UH women's volleyball team will host Big Ten Power Wisconsin coming into town, and they will play them tomorrow and Wednesday. So tomorrow's match will be at the Simplify Arena at Stan Sheriff Center. First serve scheduled for 7 o'clock p.m. And then the teams will head on over to Kauai for the rematch on Wednesday at Kauai High School in Lihue. And they will also participate in a keiki clinic prior to their match scheduled for 1 o'clock p.m. So that's really neat. Like, both teams will be out there giving back to the community out in Kauai. So tomorrow night, 7 o'clock p.m., and then on Wednesday, you guys can also go in there. Match scheduled for 1 o'clock p.m. for all of our volleyball fans. So that's why I was like, all right, we'll be at flag football, and then there's baseball, and then there's women's volleyball action going on as well. So a lot of stuff for just the fans to look forward to tomorrow if they want to take in those spring matches.
Yep, tons going on. Also, I don't think we've brought it up. Maybe you did at the start of the show. Shout out to women's water polo for continuing their win streak, taking down number 25 Pacific over the weekend. That one was a little tighter than I thought it was going to be after one quarter of play, but it's perfectly okay. 2-2 is totally fine because they ended up winning 15-8. Bernadette Doyle continues to be a total monster. Same with Emma Verneau. And I mean, at this point, this squad is just incredibly impressive, just like so many others. So that's why you should make your way down into Manoa and check out any of these athletes.
By the way, we talk about athletes a lot. And one of the core of athletes we don't talk about as much is cheer. So our Mana Wahine Wednesday this week, we finally have it back, will be Rachel Radona, a staple on the cheer squad. So be sure you guys tune in for that. And the video will be up on our YouTube channel on Mana Wahine Wednesday. But for now, we got to go. So for Paul Brecht, I'm Ku'ulei Agbayani. Mahalo for listening. Bye.
Home of the Los Angeles Clippers.